Well, welcome to River Thoughts in a slightly new format. For those who are not really familiar with River Thoughts and are tapping in for the first time, we were doing a daily podcast during Christmas or Advent and Lent, and now we're going to do a weekly podcast which is longer and gives us a chance just to expand on ideas that we start talking about rather than cutting them short. River Thoughts is well, for want of a better way of putting it, it's a stream of consciousness, and is based around the idea that the Bible gives us a theology which starts with river discussion in the very early pages of Genesis and ends with a talk of the river of life, and throughout the Bible gives different examples of where water, river, comes into the thinking process for so many people. So we thought we'd call it River Thoughts. And this is a kind of a podcast which is, Peter and I have developed this to not try and be too deep, not to always get it right, sometimes to change our mind as we talk about things, but to bring an aspect of what does God think, if you believe in him, about some of the issues that we face as humans today. And we've grappled with a few different topics over probably around about 70 odd short videos so far, but these are just going to be a bit longer. We're not entirely sure how long, probably 20 minutes each, and we're going to take different themes and we're going to talk about them, and 3 times a month, the first 3 are going to be Peter and I chatting about a particular topic, and then in the 4th one, and we'll say a bit more about that nearer the time, we're going to have 4 different people, possibly us 2 to start with, but we're going to vary it, we hope, to get different opinions on different topics that people face in life. So that just gives you, I hope, a bit of a feel for it. Neither of us 2 are experts. I come from a background, obviously, as a minister, where I've done some theological study of some depth, but this guy comes from a depth of reading and intellect that is, well, just something else, really, and the fact that he comes with a different perspective so often means that we can chew the cud in all sorts of interesting ways. So we're going to kick off in a moment, but I'm just going to check that I haven't missed anything that Peter wants to add or say anything more about what we're attempting to achieve with these podcasts. So River Thoughts Part 2, Peter Newing.
What does chewing the cud mean?
Well, I suppose you could say it's discussing issues in a bit of depth to digest them, because cows chew the cud. It's part of their digestive system. So we're going to digest and mull over and integrate our thought processes, Peter. Anything else, sir?
Well, I tried to be insightful, but I just talked about cud. So I really enjoyed doing our 70 odd videos.
So did I.
A lot of the videos. So in this series, we're just doing a bit less filming, but more in-depth discussion. So,
we hope.
So hopefully it will...
But they won't be too deep.
No.
I mean, the idea is, I think, that we want to appeal to people who are grappling with issues, whether they are of faith, no faith, or questioning what they believe in life and how all these things fit together. So it's an exploration, I think, isn't it? Isn't that about right?
Yeah, I think we're the yin and yang, because we come from different perspectives in life.
We do, and age.
So facing different points of views from different angles.
Yeah, exactly.
Which will lead to good discussions.
Exactly. So I'm going to kick us off this time, and I thought, just to start with, Peter, on Easter Sunday, our last podcast that we did for, it's not Lent, but at the end of Lent we added in the Easter Sunday one, and I floated the thought that the church needed to mull over, grapple with, and maybe lots of people did as well, making hope normal again, which of course is, for those who follow politics in any way, is the Green Party slogan. But I'm not trying to be political with this discussion. I think there is an issue around hope in our society, and it is worth pondering what we all think of the word hope. So what does Peter think of the word hope?
I think hope is the light at the end of the tunnel that keeps you going through thick and thin and through daily struggles, and it's something that helps you keep going. And it could also be you want a specific thing to happen, so you have hope that it will happen.
So what's your light at the end of the tunnel? Or haven't you thought about this and I'm putting it, you know?
I'm quite happy in my tunnel, so...
You don't want to see the light? Or
I haven't got a good enough goal at the moment. But I do.
So is the light at the end of the tunnel a goal?
Maybe not. Maybe that's not
Goal,
the
is
right.
that the... Well, we're just trying to think. Peter's grappling here, folks. We probably need to sort this with pressing the controls to have different cameras working and keeping his brain in gear at the same time.
This is in at least to your point about different types of hope. For the last half hour, my hope has been that the cameras work.
True.
And my hope has been fulfilled. Now, does that mean, if hope is to do with goals, does that mean I no longer have hope? That doesn't make any sense. So I think hope is a bit more than just goals. What would you say hope is?
Well, what you just... I think there is... I mean, the word hope could be used in the context you just said, couldn't it? But you could also use a different word there. You could have said quite happily, look, my target in the last 30 minutes was to make sure the cameras worked.
Yeah.
Not my hope was. I mean, you're so skillful that really it's not just hope that you hope they work. You know you're going to get them to work. You just might be playing around with how long it takes and how complicated it is, surely.
I'm quite doubtful. For example, when I was doing my last job as an IT technician, the teachers, when they saw me walk through the door, they think, yay, my problem solved. But inside my head, I was like, how am I going to solve this problem? And I have sort of self-doubt and things.
Yeah. Is that not a separate issue of what you think about your ability to do something?
Yeah, I think other people have more hope in my abilities than myself.
Okay.
Because it's hard to be confident in something that might not work.
Are you confident in anything? I asked that partly for a
I'm
reason.
quite well versed in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
So you'd be reasonably comfortable using those things?
I can connect my headphones to the TV, and I can connect my phone to the Wi-Fi, and on a household level, these are skills that not everyone has.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just I am confident in very easy technical tasks.
So is your confidence in things that are going to happen in the relatively near future? Are you confident about life in all its wider perspective?
Not really. I'm happy with my life, but I do wonder whether I should do more, like have a family and things like that. It's hard because I'm happy. I'm really happy with my life.
Do you link? So in all of this, because hope in a way it's a really complicated word, and I'm trying to unpack some thought processes here and link with something I mentioned to you before we started, but let's not jump too soon. But I'll just float it for those listening that, you know, in a way I want to talk about temporal hope and eternal hope.
Yeah.
So temporal hope, for those who might not be familiar with that kind of expression, is really saying, well, we've got hope in something about the world we live in now and how it might pan out in the next week, month, year, or years ahead. But at the end of the day, that's not reflecting on what our kind of eternal future is, if we think we have one, which of course some do and some don't. So I want us to grapple a little bit with temporal hope and eternal hope. But what you're talking about here is you're happy in your kind of temporal situation now.
Yeah.
Although you might have doubts about the ability to do certain things. And that's a topic for another day, because I think we're going to talk about craft and skills and those sorts of things in another one. But what I would think I'm really trying to say is, I mean, do you grapple with sort of looking ahead? Do you do anything to look ahead and cover yourself, almost put an insurance policy of hope into the temporal life that you're leading? Do you think, oh, this might happen, so I'll do this?
I'm not sure about this whole temporal thing. What I would say, looking back on my life, I vividly remember being at school at lunchtime, and I was by myself, and I wasn't very happy, and I was thinking, right, I'll just get through this part of my life, and I hope that one day I'll be better off, both with my life and my mental health and everything.
Yeah.
And I won't promote my book, but
why not?
Because I don't know. But
that might bring us into a discussion about some of these things in a bit more detail.
As I was saying, I'm just saying that I always hoped that things would get better, and the book that I wrote about myself, things have got better. So I've sort of fulfilled the hope that I had, and now I tend to think about other people's situations.
Okay.
Because I'm happy with my own.
Okay. So why, just being devil's advocate, Peter?
Yes.
You said right at the start of this, well, I think I see hope as something like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
So have you thrown that out now, or is there something here that you still think that there is something in that?
I don't know if it fully explains hope, but another way I think of it is you have a journey of faith, and the hope is what. Well, you interchange words and it's confusing, but like faith and hope are similar,
Yeah.
and one feeds into the other, and
yeah, they do. I mean, biblically, people talk about faith, hope, and love, and the biggest of these is love, which is in the book of Corinthians, and so they are separated in a way, faith, hope, and love.
Yeah.
But they are sort of interconnected. I mean, when you look up, which I was getting ahead of myself with this, so I looked up well, no, I didn't look it up. I googled it. I didn't go to a dictionary to find, well, how do they define hope? And the simple way it was phrased was something along the lines of a positive attitude to the future.
Yeah, I'm not very good when it comes to uncertain futures. So, for example, as an IT technician, I kept on being able to fix things, and I had like 100% success rate in fixing things, and I could look at the result of what I did and think, right, I'm confident. But even though I am doing things well, I'm more in the frame of mind where things are uncertain, and I lack hope. Well, no, you have hope that you can do things, but you sort of lack faith that because it's uncertain.
So does it bother? I mean, is there any thought process in your head that thinks around, well, I'm here now, but are you bothered whether there's a Peter Newing into the long haul? Into the very distant future come end of life scenario. I mean, I'm nearer that than you are. I'm 71, you're 28.
Yeah.
So, when I was 28, I wouldn't have thought much about what life was going to be like if I got to 70. I was too busy living in a way in the time. But I think I'm wanting to say, in young people today, I think there is a problem with hope.
Okay, yeah.
There's a hopelessness, which we could go into. Where do you stand on all of that?
I think I don't know about what you're saying, but my life has changed viewpoint when I got my first nephew, because I'm not thinking, what do I want my life to look like? I'm thinking, I want to be there to support him in 20 years' time when he comes to me with a problem.
Yeah.
So it gives me a sort of a more eternal sort of hope. I care not about my temporary life. I care more about somebody else. So
are you saying, well, his life is really important?
Yeah.
So are you saying, but Peter Newing's life isn't? Or Peter Newing's life's only important because he can help your nephew?
My life is important, but I don't get any confidence from knowing that, because it's hard to be self-confident in your own importance.
Well,
It doesn't.
I'm not necessarily.
That's not the right phrase, but
Yeah, yeah, okay. I see.
how would you
Well,
say what I'm trying to say?
my perspective theologically is that God loves everyone and cares
Yeah.
for everyone. So, from a theological point of view and a godly point of view, I would want to say I think God's value for you is the same as the value for your nephew. So, if you're thinking of a future 20 years hence and how you can help him,
Yeah.
at the same time, maybe there's you to think about 20 years' time, or 40 years' time, or into eternity. And I wonder whether there's something that people in general need to grapple with. I mean, I looked up something on this, is why I've just shifted a couple of bits of paper here, where somebody wrote down, we live with an epidemic of hopelessness, anxiety, pessimism, discouragement, dread and despair. Hope is much needed.
That what you've said, it sounds like the opposite of, I don't know that verse, but the one that ends with think about such things,
Yeah.
with all the different things.
Yeah, that's I can look that up for you. I mean, you love watching a lot of you watch quite a lot of TV and YouTube and
Oh, yeah.
all the rest of it, don't you? And is it entertainment or is it informative? How do you see your media viewing? I know I'm going a bit tangent wise here, but
It's it's sort of informative, and it's entertaining because it's informative. Like, it's really weird. I've had a fascination over the last month in following the news,
yeah, go on. Why?
because bad things are happening
Well, they are. Yeah,
more than usual,
yeah, there are.
and it's just really interesting. But other things I watch is like a podcast. I'll learn a bit about a particular expert, and I like watching that. So, and I even in the past I have signed up for this thing called Peterson Academy.
Is that Jordan?
Yeah, but he's not running it because he's unwell. But like, I watch lecturers. So something I've done in the past is I've watched 16 2-hour lectures, sort of seminars, with a load of professors round a table with Jordan Peterson, and it's 16 hours on Exodus, I think.
Okay.
No, he did Genesis by himself, and then he did Exodus with a group of experts.
Okay.
And they just went through each passage and the story, and they talked about it. And that, for me, is entertaining.
Entertaining rather than informative.
Well, they're one of the same.
I mean, the reason I'm bringing up the whole idea of entertainment is I think people live almost for this is going to sound a bit judgmental, and I don't really mean it that way, because there's nothing wrong with doing these things as long as your perspective is the right way. But almost like we've got to be instantly gratified. We've got to have this to entertain us because we haven't got anything else.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether the young people growing up now are struggling because they've got all this, I mean, such a choice of things they could be doing and watching, and what is this person doing and what's this person doing and how can I be entertained here? And it all kind of feels like it's in the now. Whereas hope is about looking forward, positive attitude to the future. And then, as you've just said, we've got a world that's falling apart. And
Yeah.
you're looking at the news because you're thinking, well, this is not too good. It doesn't engender hope, whether it be hope actually temporarily, like in 30 years, is humanity still going to be all right and am I still going to be alive? But
Yeah.
but almost, well, is the whole, what's the meaning of all this? Why is this destruction happening? I mean, have we not got a future that's past this and better than this somewhere ultimately?
I think for me, in my life, if I was able to get outside my own sort of point of view, and if I was to move from, I don't know if this makes sense, the sort of like my personal self, like temporal self, if I got to be happy with an eternal self, that would, so it's hard to explain, but I'm thinking like I'm happier if I had children that knew that they were going to be fine without me. That sort of gives me a nice feeling. So I think you can get lost if you're just thinking about temporal hope. I think you need to have something bigger than yourself to sort of...
But is that based ultimately on other humans, or is it based on more than that?
Well, it depends what you believe, because
that's why I'm asking, because what I'm trying to think is how do I in a way keep a perspective on it? Have I really got a hope if all my hope is that by the end of my life X will have happened, and then I'm kaput?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about having this kind of distinction between a temporal hope and an eternal hope. I don't fancy dying, but I don't fancy even more not being around after dying.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Because I always get a bit morbid sometimes when I watch the football, and I'm just thinking that this Liverpool team in 100 years, they're going to be doing the same old thing, trying to get fifth in the Premier League. And I'm just watching it, you know.
But you see, I might be saying, well, they might be trying to do the same old thing, putting a ball in a net.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's enjoyment.
On that note, if I could have one wish from a genie, it would be that a soul exists. Because if you think that when you die, that's it, that's quite depressing.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a soul, and leading into that, I like the idea of an eternal hope. That would be my number one thing to be real.
So, how are you going to approach that thought process? I mean, are you thinking, well, it might be lovely if it is, but I'm only going to find out when I get there? Or are you going to live on the basis of one or the other of those? Either it's going to be or it isn't going to be.
I think my life would be happy if I believed in it. So.
But you said your life was happy already.
Oh yeah, maybe not happy, more like joyful, or like a deeper contentment.
That's interesting that you say that, because when you actually analyse some of the processes around the biblical narrative on this, and I would like to use that, but maybe we'll do a second session on this, I think. But the two things that come out of it are freedom and joy. It didn't, in a way, not happiness so much as joy, a kind of inner sense of contentment and confidence that even though things might be a complete and utter mess at the moment, I've got something at the end of that.
Yeah.
Now, we can never prove these things. I mean, I can't prove whether I've got a soul or not.
No.
If you see what I mean, because it's physically, we're into the realms of can science prove there's a soul there kind of thing, which of course
even if
science has limits.
Even if that did happen, I wouldn't believe it, probably.
Well, that's another point to do with scientific...
as we've learned, scientific studies don't apply to what Peter thinks. No.
Well, that's one way of putting it. What I think I'd like to do, Peter, I'm not quite sure how far we are into this particular podcast, and we could go on, couldn't we?
Yeah.
But I think I want to maybe flag up and make hope a topic for 2 parts rather than 1.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be good to look at some of the kind of what the Bible speaks into on this. And if somebody's listening to this who's not of faith and thinks, well, why are you going to use that? I think I want to say that the only way I can see myself getting to an understanding theologically of whether there is an eternal hope or not is to look at what I have that reflects on the life of Jesus, who died and rose again according to my belief. And the only evidence I've got from that, apart from the Spirit of God and some kind of circumstantial experiential knowing, which I could come back to talk about, but is what I get from the biblical narrative of the history and the story that I can look at. And so it'd be good to look at some of those things and see whether the perspectives that come out of the teaching that come from not only the Old Testament, but from Matthew's Gospel and Luke's Gospel, and then in the words in the letter, the 1 and 2 Peter letters, and Titus and a few others, where we can get some sense of, well, is there a hope for the future, because I would love to speak into the lives of those words that I read out earlier on about people being hopeless and anxious and pessimistic and discouraged and dreading things and despair that we see in kind of a lot of the issues that people have in their lives at the moment. Wouldn't it be better that we can give them something to hope for, not just in the future, because the church has been negative often about, don't worry about life now, we just want to believe in something in the eternity. I think it's a both and, that we have to give people hope as they live life and hope when they end life. And it isn't just one or, the church, I think, did a bit more on the end of life. You will be judged, and if you do this, you'll get there, or whatever, in the old teaching, so to speak. But although there's a truth in that, there's also a truth in helping each other with life now, like you wanted to help your nephew 20 years on. So I think we probably need to do more on this, don't we?
Yeah, interesting. Thank you for your time.
Would you? I mean, maybe I need to you and I need to think more and then come back with some stuff that we can kind of challenge one another with in some way, I think.
For now, thank you.
Shall we stop there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was the first attempt, folks, at River Thoughts Weekly. Cheers for now.
Cheers for now. Thank you.